Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Next, let's look at what is meant by mixed cost. So these costs are the costs that have both a variable element and a fixed element. As the name implies, it is mixed. So that means it consists the both portion, that is the variable and the fixed element. And then change in total but not proportionately with changes in the activity level. So graphically, for example, you have this portion as your fixed cost element. And then you have after that, you will have a portion of your variable cost. So the green one is your fixed element. And then this one, the peach in color is your variable cost element. Then you will have your total cost line. So your total cost line will consist of your fixed portion as well as the variable portion. So this one is known as, if your cost behave like this, so it cut your y-axis at a certain figure that is above your zero, so that is your mixed cost. Okay, so that if this one is your total cost and it cut your y-axis above your zero, so that is a mixed cost. So for example, Helena Company reports the following total cost at two levels of production. So classify each cost as variable, fixed, or mixed. So you have these two units, two level of production. You have 10,000 units and you have 20,000 units. This one is the level of activity or the units produced. Okay, let's look at what if for your direct material. So for your direct material, is that variable cost? Is that fixed cost? Is that mixed cost? How are you going to determine whether it is variable, fixed, or mixed? So if you can take the cost per unit, so that's why you have to understand the behavior of the cost that we have looked into previously. So in this case, your total material cost is 20,000 ringgit. So that 20,000 ringgit, what is the cost per unit? So 20,000 divided by 10. So 20 divided by 10. So that will give you 2 ringgit per unit. So 2 ringgit per unit. What about at this level of activity at 20,000 units? At 20,000 units, the cost that you incur is 40,000 ringgit. So 40,000 divided by 20,000 ringgit, 20,000 units. So that will also give you 2 ringgit per unit. So at this level, at 10,000 units, the cost is 2 ringgit per unit. And at this level, the cost is also 2 ringgit per unit. So what is that? So your direct material is a variable cost. Okay, what about the maintenance? So the maintenance, if it is 8,000, so 8,000 divided by 10,000. So 8,000 divided by 10,000 give you 0.8. And then if you take 10,000 divided by 20,000, so 10,000 divided by 20,000 gives you 0.5. So it is not the same. So at this level, it is 0.8. At this level, it is 0.5 per unit. So your maintenance is it is not a variable cost. And is it a fixed cost? It is neither a fixed cost. Why? Because if you are talking about the fixed cost, so fixed cost is the cost that remain unchanged. Okay, it remains constant. So you can see here, for example, your depreciation at 10,000 units, the cost is 4,000 ringgit. What about at 20,000 units level? It remains at 4,000. So this one is your fixed cost. So you identify which one are your variable, which one are your fixed, and which one is your mixed. So your maintenance cost is a mixed cost. Okay, this one is a mixed cost because your cost per unit changes or different. What about your direct labor? So you can do the same as what I have mentioned earlier. So you can identify the cost per unit or the CPU, the cost per unit for your direct labor. So your direct labor is a variable cost. And then what else? Your variable cost. What about your indirect material? So 1,000 divided by 10 gives you how much? And then you take 2,000 divided by 20 gives you how much? So that is your indirect material is a variable cost. And then the cost that remain unchanged, the 4,000, the 3,000, the 4,000, the 6,000. So these are your fixed costs. So your fixed cost will be the depreciation as well as the rent. And if you find that the cost changes per unit, so this one, if you calculate, as I mentioned earlier, this one is 0.8 and this one is 0.5. So that belongs to a mixed cost element. So that one will be your mixed cost. This one will be your utilities, will also be your mixed cost. Okay, and then we need to apply the high-low method to determine the components of the mixed cost. So you want to determine the mixed cost element, how much is the portion of your variable cost, how much is the portion of the fixed cost. So to split that up, you can use the high-low method. So high-low method uses the total cost incurred at the high and the low levels of activity to classify the mixed cost into the fixed and variable component. So the difference in cost between the high and low levels represent the variable cost, since only variable cost element can change as activity levels changes. Maybe you can understand this better when we do the calculation. We look into the high-low method. So what is high-low method? This is a method that you use to split your cost. If let's say in this case just now, you have your mixed cost. Your maintenance is your mixed cost. Your utilities is your mixed cost. So how are you going to split the portion of your mixed cost into the fixed cost portion and your variable cost portion? Okay. So you want to split that into the fixed cost and the variable cost portion. So the first step that you need to do is you need to determine the variable cost per unit using the following formula. So changes in total cost divided by the high minus low activity level. So that will give you variable cost per unit. For example, okay, Metro Transit Company has the following maintenance costs and mileage data for its fleet of buses over a 6-month period. Okay, so you are being given this information. So let's say you have 3 months, you have all these 6 months, okay, from January, February, March, April, May, June. And then this is the miles driven given to you. So you have 20,000 miles, 40,000 miles, 35 miles, and you are being given the total cost that you have incurred. So what you need to do is that you find the high and the low. Okay. So you identify the changes in cost. Which one is the highest? You look at the total cost column. So you look at the total cost column, which one is the highest? So you identify this one, the 63,000 ringgit. So the 63,000 is the highest. So 63,000. What is the lowest? So the lowest is 30,000. So you identify the change in cost. That means the high minus low. So high is 63 minus 30. So you will have 63 minus 30 gives you 33,000. So that 33,000 is the changes in cost. What about the changes in the miles driven or the level of activity? So in this case, the highest is 50,000 and the lowest is 20,000. So you will take 50 minus 20 gives you 30. So 33,000 ringgit divided by 30,000 miles driven. So that will give you 1.1. So 1 ringgit and 10 cent cost per unit, okay, or per mile. Okay, that is the first step. You identify the changes, the high-low, okay, the difference between the change in the cost and divided by the miles driven. Okay, the next step is for you to determine the fixed cost. Now you need to identify the portion of your fixed cost. How are you going to identify the portion of your fixed cost? You need to do by subtracting the total variable cost at either the high or the low activity level from the total cost at that activity level. So to understand this better, okay, let's say you see you can use it at the 63,000 level or at 30,000 level. So that is meant by you can either take the high or the low activity level. If let's say we take the high, if you take the high activity level, the total cost that you have identified is 63,000. Now you need to know how much is the portion of your variable cost, how much is the portion of your fixed cost out of that 63,000. You have worked out this one, 1.1 ringgit per unit. Okay, that is the variable cost. So the variable cost is 1.1 ringgit, and let's say at the high level, at high, okay, this one in the month of April, your high is 50,000 miles. So that 50,000 miles, you times with the 1 ringgit and 10 cents, so that will give you 55. So you know that this 55 is the portion of your variable cost. So out of that 63, you identify 55 as your variable portion. So the remaining will be your fixed cost. So you can either put in the high level, or you can do at the low level. You will arrive at the same answer. So if you take the low level, so your low level here is 30,000 and the miles driven is 20. So 20 times 1.1, so that will give you 22. So 30 minus 22 also gives you 8,000. So because we know that fixed cost remains the same regardless of your activity level, so you have worked out your total fixed cost as the 8,000 ringgit. Okay. So this one you can estimate. Okay, maintenance costs are therefore 8,000 per month of fixed cost, plus the variable portion is 1.1 per mile of your variable cost. So you can put in a formula y equals to a plus bx. You remember you have the line y equals to a plus bx. So here, if you want to show it graphically, you have this one, right? The total cost line. The total cost line equals to y equals to a plus bx. So a will be the y-intercept. Okay, the y-intercept. So that will be your fixed cost. In that case, your fixed cost is 8,000. And then what is this one? The slope or the gradient. The gradient is 1.1. Y equals to bx. B is your beta, alpha plus beta x. Okay, that will be your slope. Your slope is 1.1, and then times your x is your level of activity, right? So you can put that in this equation. So that will be 8,000 plus 1.1 times your x. X is your miles driven. And then you can work out at 45,000 miles, estimated maintenance cost would be, you know that your fixed cost is 8,000, and then you can put into the formula. So you will get 1.1 times 45. So you will get your estimated cost or maintenance cost at 57,500. So you can use the high and low method to split your mixed cost into the variable and fixed portion, and then you can estimate how much is the cost at any level of activity within the relevant range. Okay, so this is how you can plot the graph. Okay, and then this one, mixed cost consists of which one? The variable cost element and a fixed cost element, or mixed cost consists of fixed cost element and a control. Okay, fixed cost element and a controllable cost element. C, relevant cost element and a controllable cost element, or D, variable cost element and a relevant cost element. So your answer would be the variable cost element and a fixed cost element. So that is your mixed cost. So hopefully you have a better understanding on this mixed cost. So mixed cost is the cost that consists of your fixed and variable. And then you use the high-low method to split the portion of your fixed and variable cost element. Right? So with that, I thank you.